Hello and welcome to On the Hunt, the Foxcatcher preview show. My name's Julian Valance, joined up north in Sydney, as always, Nick Ashman. G'day, Nico.
Hello, Julesy. How are you, buddy? Well, before we get to how you are, I'll just tell you how I am so we don't have to do that awkward back and forth thing. And the reason why I'm talking so much now is because you told me before we came on air that we need to beef out this first segment a little bit because we're a little light on content. So, hey, I'm okay. No, I'm not real good. I've got what we think is bad reflux. I woke up in the middle of the night gasping for air, so I'm off to the doctor straight after this. But never a dull moment in my life and never a dull moment in racing.
Let's get to the track intel. Let's start. We've got three tracks again because you've come up with some really good info for obviously Queensland as well, and obviously we'll provide Randwick and Flemington. I'll kick off with Flemington. Rail out 8 metres the entire circuit. Now I'm working off a soft to heavy range for this track, Nico. We've got up to, we obviously filmed this Thursday morning. So we've got up to 40 mils of rain today at Melbourne, and it's going to hit. So that's going to impact the track to some degree. Now, we've got sort of drying, well, I shouldn't say drying conditions. We just don't have much rainfall sort of from Friday afternoon onwards. But I think the damage will be done. So I think we'll be in the soft to heavy range, so wet track. 15 to 20 kilometre westerly wind. So you probably need it to get up to 20 plus to be thinking it's an issue. But if it does get up into that space and that westerly wind, we know it's a headwind into the home straight or into that long straight, well, the whole straight at Flemington. In terms of how we think it'll play, the straight, my numbers say, look, comes pretty even when the rail goes out and you get into the wet. The inside lanes, the return on investment is actually really solid versus usually middle to outside lanes. But we've spoken about this a fair bit in the past, that Flemington has seemed to even up in terms of those inside lanes have been okay. So not too stressed there. In terms of the circle, 1,400 metres plus. Even, look, leaders, actually a good return on investment, which is interesting because we always speak about Flemington, that the leaders drop off a cliff. And I think the last time we were at Flemington, leaders had no hope because the wind was a certain way. It was obviously a northerly, it was a headwind into that rounding, sweeping home turn, and leaders just finished nowhere near it. So now I think it's going to be okay for leaders. Don't be worried about that. Backmarker's a low percentage play, but other than that, pretty even as per Flemington. Randwick, out 3 metres entire circuit. What are you thinking with yours? Because you're sort of in a bit of a state of not sure either.
Bit overcast looking outside the studio window now, but I want to drill down on this because it's almost a bit of a fox factor, what I'm going to sort of say now, and it's a good piece of info for winter tracks. So we're on a soft 7 on Thursday morning. The key to understanding difference between summer and winter is the tracks dry a lot faster in summer, which is stating the obvious. The reason why is that in the mornings in winter, the dew's on the ground and it stays there quite often until 9:30, sometimes even 10 o'clock, depending on when the sun actually hits the track. So, and that depends on the position of the track, grandstands, trees, et cetera, et cetera. So Randwick, as a rule of thumb, I sort of say it can improve in winter sort of about somewhere between 1 and 1.5 grades a day if it's dry and it's sunny and it gets good amount of sun. I think with that in play, if it's a bang on a 7, then we probably end up close to a good 4 on race morning, but we could just still be in that soft 5. So if you're backing a horse that needs a bone dry track, I'd be looking for them probably more later in the day after the sun's had a few more hours. First race is at 11 o'clock. So by the time that morning dew sort of dissipates and the sun gets on it, it doesn't have a very long period of time to dry out. So, whatever it is late Friday afternoon, that's probably what it's going to be for the first few hours on Saturday. And then it just depends on whether or not it can go up from there. In terms of the pattern for the day, so look, just on that, I think you could safely say soft 5, good 4, and I'd be leaning a little bit more to the good 4, particularly as the meeting progresses. What we're hearing is sort of like lanes 3, 4, out to about lanes 10, that type of thing is the place to be. You're probably not going to see too many winners come much wider than 10 just because the rail itself isn't that inferior. There's no issue getting wider than lane 10, but there's just no need to get out there. So that usually when we get that type of report for Randwick, it favours horses in the first 6 just because they can roll off the inside part of the track and at their leisure and get into those slightly better lanes.
Love that. Also, Eagle Farm, obviously got the Group 1 Queensland Oaks, which we'll talk on a little bit later in the show, but out 2 metres the entire circuit. How we think this track's going to play?
Yeah, look, it's going to get back into the good range. They've got good weather up there north of the border, so very confident that we'll end up definitely on a good track. In terms of the pattern, still going to be a little bit off the inside. I'm guessing there must be plenty of wear and tear from last week's meeting. All I've been told is that expect them to be winning sort of down the middle, but they won't necessarily be coming as deep on the corner as they could last week. Probably just saving ground around the bends is a slight more of an advantage than it was 7 days ago, but you're still essentially going to want to be just a fraction away from the inside.
Beautiful. Okay, so there's the intel for the 3 tracks, Flemington, Randwick and Eagle Farm this week. Hey, let's get to Fox Factors, and I'll keep it with you, actually, because you've got some info, obviously, about the Queensland Oaks to starting with, and then just roll through with your other factors as well, Nico. So starting with the Queensland Oaks, you just want to drill down a little bit there?
I always like to have a look at, just on level stakes. I know proportional betting's probably a more accurate guide, but just on level stakes for the average $20 punter out there. In every Group 1 of the year, I like to look at whether or not you'd be in front since I started punting in 1991. So I went back and had a look, and if you'd backed every Queensland Oaks favourite since 1991, level staked, you'd be up 12% on turnover. So it's a race that the market, I think, tends to have a pretty good handle on. We spoke about this 7 days ago with the Derby. It's because it's one age bracket, one sex within that age bracket, and it's at the back end of their season. So we've got a lot of exposed form that we can go off, and I think that's one of the key reasons. In terms of position in run, it's a little bit more of a sweepers race than the Queensland Derby. 6 of the last 10 winners have been positioned between 12th and 16th. Now, the reason why I dug up that stat, as I nearly stabbed myself with the microphone, is because that's probably where Panova's going to be. It's probably where Crisp is going to be. They're going to be in that second half of the field. So all the punters out there that are backing Panova, and there's plenty of them out there, that's a good thing to have in your, in your corner. It's a good race for favourites. It's a good race for swoopers. So then we go, okay, well, what about this Waller and Mellum combination? So we're going to have a look. They've had 241 runs together, and their finishing position, whether it's first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, 17th, is exceeding market expectations by 21%. So this is a really good combination. They nearly pinched the Derby last week with Monopolistic. They had to settle for second behind the stablemate Providence, ridden by J-Mac. This week, Waller's obviously got Chispa in the race as well, and Jamie Mellon will ride her. But certainly there's some really good stats around Panova in terms of history and in terms of the form and combination of Waller and Mellon.
I'm going to just focus on, we talk about this a lot, and in the last couple of weeks, we've talked about the Fox factors in particular of wet tracks and what we sort of look for, all the kinds of different things that you need to be, whether it be deep in the prep, back up, many, many different things. And I want to identify the quick 7-day backup or even less, because we have got a number of horses at Flemington this week that are going from a very wet track at Caulfield to most likely a very wet track at Flemington. And the 7-day backup, I think the market gravitates towards. Whether that means the horse ends up winning the race, I'm not saying that. But these horses are the ones on the quick 7-day backup, so they're just in a group for you right here, punters, so you can don't have to go through the form guide at all. They'll just be right in front of you. So horses on the 7-day backup from Caulfield to Flemington this week. Race 3, Bale Maison. So it was off 28 days last start. Now, it ran behind Clever Trevor. That race has gone great. Clever Trevor's going to go through the grades really, really quickly, end up probably being a group horse, I think. It ran well, was behind it, through the line, excellent. 7-day backup, great. Race 4, a horse called High on the Hill. Again, was off 28 days. Probably didn't come to the right part of the track maybe last start, behind Choir Point. So again, quick 7-day backup for it. Now, race 5, we've got 2 horses at this stage. So first chorus was off 35 days last start, small field, Caulfield, rounded them up out the back. Look, race hasn't gone through the massive, but it's going to improve. You'd think it probably sits, it and Duchess do really control the race, but on the quick 7-day backup, first chorus is an absolute wet track. A lovely cut ran up Wednesday at Sandown. So it'll be on the 3-day backup if it decides to run. Race 6, LOU, quick backup. Interesting to note with LOU, it's a third up winner twice. It'll be third up on Saturday. It ran third, obviously, last week. And Legio 10's on the quick 6-day backup. It ran at Sandown. It ran 5th on Sunday. So quick 6-day backup for that horse. And in race 9, Celsius Star is on the quick 7-day backup. This horse has performed up the straight before, so that's a positive as well if you wanted to look at that horse. Ran 4th last start, and it's deep into the prep too. So it ticks a few boxes in terms of that wet track. So they're those quick 7-day backup horses. There's a lot. You don't see that many really around, but they're clearly some trainers have identified, yep, that's what we want to be doing with our horses when it goes from wet to wet. All right, partners, let's get to our feature race of the weekend. It's Saturday. It's obviously up in Queensland. It's the Queensland Oaks, Nico. So let's go from a points bet market point of view and roll through the key chances here, and then we'll have our thoughts on some of these horses and how we think this race is going to be run. Big field in terms of the market. Panova sort of top of the chain there. Chispa, Fireball Miss, who wins sort of the traditional lead-up last start. Solid Gold on the quick 7-day backup from the Derby, where it was really well supported and probably was disappointing compared to market expectations, some would say. Savarado, Parvenu, and then you get sort of further out to Single Red, who's drawn wide. And look, I would think they'd probably still roll forward, but I'm not 100% sure of that. In terms of you think how this race is going to be run, big field, Nico, what are we thinking?
Well, the Doom and Roses, Julesy, it was run at a ridiculous tempo. It's like 20 lengths below standard. So it's almost barely no guide other than looking at which ones had the best turn of foot and knowing that they're the faster horse, if that makes any sense. But just remember, 7 days ago going into the Derby, we were talking about the rough habit being really slow. We spoke about this on the previous show. When the race is run really slow and everyone knows what the outcome is and they know they can't win, they go, well, look at that. I'm not going to go slow again. And we got a lot of pace in the Derby 7 days ago. So it was 6 or 7 lengths above standard through that first section. So a couple of things on that. First of all, Solid Gold. What's the filly's name?
Solid Gold, yes.
Solid Gold. Probably not the right race shape to back up out of, with all due respect. And she wasn't that far off it either. So that's the concern for her. The next thing is, do the girls do the same thing on Saturday and go really quick like the boys did, coming out of a slowly run key lead up and go fast? I think they absolutely have to. I think Single Red and Panda's Spectrum will come across from outside gates. The 2,200 metre start point is about halfway down the straight. They've only got about 200, 250 metres before they start turning out. So if you're drawn wide and you want to get across and you want to be up on top of the speed, you've just got to go right from the clappers. You've got maybe 12, 14 seconds to hit the rail. And then if you're not there, then you're going to be covering ground around that first turn. So those two go forward. Solid Gold, I think she has no choice but to be close. That's what she wants to do. She either makes or breaks it, if you like. I think Zulika for Henry can go forward. Silver Sister will be up there. And a horse that I didn't think was completely hopeless in the lead-up, Crathy Kirk, she lacks a turn of foot. She lost a spot in the Doom and Roses. And I think on Saturday she'll go forward as well, and probably Grand Omaha. Obviously, Chispa goes back from the wide gate. Obviously, Panova will settle sort of midfield if she can, maybe a touch worse than midfield, and the rest will fall away as they please.
Talking about, we'll obviously start with the favourite, Panova. It's a really interesting little case study, this horse, is that it seems to be best figures, or the best figures with me, dry track, big track. So Morphettville wins the 2,000 metre Oaks there last start. Good number at Flemington, big track, dry track, and Randwick, I think it did a really good number as well on a dry track, big track. So they're the two sort of ingredients that seem to mix together for Panova to run to its best. What happens on Saturday? Big track, Eagle Farm, dry track as well, as you've identified in the intel to begin with. It is off 42 days, and some people could suggest, well, is that going to be a concern over this kind of distance? But it did win the last start, the South of the Australasian Oaks, off 28 days. And it's trained by Chris Waller. So I think that allays any fears in terms of that. Thoughts on Panova?
I tend to agree with you. I mean, the figure she posted in that SA Oaks was pretty good. The margins weren't massive, so I'm always a little sort of like, but she was good. She was strong through the line. They were inside standard. Her last 200 metres was inside standard. So you would think that 2,200 or the step up to 2,200 is going to be okay. Barrier 6, I think, gives Benny Mellon so many options. He's riding really well. ideally, he's probably going to hopefully have her midfield. I'm pretty sure in most of her runs this autumn, she's drawn wide and had to go back. So I think she's the horse to beat. And probably the little query isn't so much the 42 days between runs. It's just the length of time she's had to stay up for now.
Yeah.
She went round in the early autumn. They had that little gap. They went to South Australia. Now they've come back. They've got 42 days. They've got to go up to Brisbane. There's a little bit going on there. And you're right. If anyone's going to do it, it's going to be the maestro himself, Chris Waller. But it's still sometimes a bridge too far for even the best in the business.
You identified Chispa sort of leading into the main lead-up as sort of the one off Broadway that was the one that could be right in the mix here, and 100% it's right in the mix for this race. I love the fact that it was through the line last start. It was really good. Second go 2,000 metres here in the prep, and there's a couple other horses that are like that as well. I think Parvenue's second go, Fireball Miss, who wins this race, that obviously beat Chispa. We love that in terms of, that's probably going to be the peak run for the prep. Gate 20 is the trick for it, though, isn't it? And it's not because, gate 20 means it can't win. It just means positioning run changes, doesn't it, for a horse like this? That if it draws the 6 or the 8, then Jamie Mellum, who's got beautiful hands and gets horses to go from the gate, could be midfield, forward of midfield. From gate 20, they're not going to use the energy up early. Probably has to be worse than midfield, doesn't it?
I think so, but I also don't think it's a massive negative. 7 days ago, we were sitting here talking about how Jimmy Star was $5, and I sort of was saying to you that it looks a pretty good price, particularly with the intel being it going to play off rail. That wide gate will probably look a bit of a positive at come that time of the day. I think his SP was like 340, 350. Yeah, that's how it played out. So you've got to be very careful about looking at a wide gate and automatically going, that's terrible, and putting the pin through it. You've just sort of, you've got to be a little bit more savvy than that, I think. And also I play into the space that, we spoke about 6 of the last 10 winners have settled between 12th and 16th. Now, that doesn't mean that's what's going to happen on Saturday, but it is a race. It is a track. It is a time of the year. It is that type of – the circumstances are that horses can run on in this race. And then you add to the fact that 7 of the last 10 winners have also jumped from barriers 9 to 18. Now, again, that means nothing in this year's race, but it gives you some confidence that wide gates, getting wide, blending in out wide with cover, that's going to be go. This isn't a lead-up race. Horses will pull the trigger from the 600 and 700 metre mark if they think they're too far back. So all she's got to do is find a bum. For me, it's going to be a similar ride to She's Alibi in the Doncaster Mile. You're going to get back. You're going to be a long way off, and you're hopefully going to get a cart down the side. You're probably going to be widest coming around the turn. If the horse is good enough, she can run him down. If not, it's not going to be her day. But she was the fastest through the line in the key lead-up. It wasn't an overly good guide, but what I learned from that, Julesy, was that she's got a better turn of foot than those horses. And so if she can stay the 2,200, and I think she will, she beats the Roses horses home, even with that wide gate. The query is stablemate Panova. Is she just better than them all? That's the big question.
Are they the two that you're playing with in terms of the top of the market? And I know they're sort of at the pointy end. Are they the two that you're most, you'd still, if you were going to play, that you would probably be dabbling with?
Yeah, and I backed Crathy Kirk in futures markets. I think less than the 100 to 1 that she is now. Okay. So I'm going to sit on that. And I do think if it's a faster tempo, I think that filly is one of those sort of tough sort of fillies, Crathy, and she can run top 5, top 4 for your same race multis on your points bet app. But I think it's really Panova and Chispa. Chispa's got the Roses horses covered, and Panova might just be better than them. You probably do have to mention, I want to come back and ask you this question. The Paltrow Miss, she was only third up in the SA Oaks at start number 4. So just on my thoughts are, one, she's had the run at 2,000 metres, plus she now is 4th up, whereas Panova was already 4th up in the SA Oaks. And also just that natural development. Panova had a trip to Melbourne in the Carbine Club in the spring. She had a lot more race sense going into the SA Oaks. You would think that Paltrow Miss is the big improver out of the SA Oaks.
We're going to stay in Queensland because this Morton Cup's a really interesting one. Obviously, it's race 9 on the card here. And from a points bet perspective, we've got Manal, Boomtown Boss, King of Sparta, In Flight, Uncommon James, Hidden Wealth, Chidiac. And they're all single figures, by the way. And then you sort of push out to Zoo Sensation at a bigger price, but just into double figures. This race is interesting because you can win this and you are given the exemption into the Stradbroke next week. Is there any horse that could do the double?
There's probably two to keep an eye on. There's only two, in my opinion. Zoo Sensation, I think, is a backable price on Saturday. 1,200 is probably short of his best, but he's clearly just trying to get into the Stradbroke. He still holds a nomination there. He does need to win this to get in, but he's 14, 15 bucks on Saturday, and you're probably getting, I haven't even looked, but probably 100 to 1 in the Stratty. But just back him on Saturday first, because even if he wins this, you're not going to be getting much less than about $9 or $10 in the Stratty in 7 days. So you can just all up it or parlay it. And the other one is our mate Craig Cousins, the Inflictor. He's fourth up. He's got above average ability, this galloper. Obviously, he comes here off running in the BR sprint behind a bounding. He has been thereabouts all preparation with runs. He started at Randwick, he went to Rockhampton, and then he came back to Doomben. But he's a pretty handy galloper. I think if either of those two won, they could definitely be a top 3 chance in a Stradbroke handicap in 7 days' time.
Okay, punters, we're almost there. We're going to get to our sets right now. And I think the boys actually in the back end, AJ and Lockie, are going to provide the numbers on our Saturday set. So make sure you check them out on socials. Talking about socials, make sure you are following, subscribing, going through all the different channels, obviously on YouTube. Make sure you get involved with any comments or questions that you might have for Nick or Hutch or myself. And we'll just keep on building what we have. I'm going to start with you, mate. We're going to start with Randwick.
Yep.
Fire away.
Just on the socials as well, next week I'm going to do a special Stradbroke special day.
It is your most favourite race of all time.
There you know. I've had 19 horses nominated for it. I'm hoping with a field of 18 that somehow they'll make an adjustment. But keep an eye out on the YouTube channel. There'll be an extra piece of gold in there next week. So just let's start with race 8. This is the Bob Charlie AO, if you don't mind stakes. Listed race 1,100 metres. I'm having a 3-bet play here, Julesy. Accredited. Let's start with him. First up here for Joe Pride, Nashua Willer in the saddle. Nash has got great Randwick stats, and with some of the other big jockeys north of the border, I think he gets his chance to dominate. This horse is really good fresh. Yeah, I get that maybe 1,100 short of his best, but he's placed 5 of 6 first up runs. First up last preparation is where take a look into a replay of him now first up. He was on a heavy 8 over 1,100 metres here at Randwick. He finishes second beating the bees, you know what, to Estadio Mastala. Estadio. And he was $3.30 favourite in that race in a benchmark 100, which is basically the same as a listed race, let's be honest. I think the dry track on Saturday suits. Obviously, a little bit of an issue from the gate, but we've got Nash in the saddle to sort that out. I think they can be slightly positive and drop in midfield. That's what I'm hoping for anyway. So he's got to go in the mix for mine off what he's done in the past first up. First up, the prep before that, he was beaten by Barber half a length in a takeover target stakes at Gosford. He possibly should have won. He was held up there. So he goes in at around that sort of 657 mark. The Black Cloud, also for my team, Proven Thoroughbreds. Yep. She comes back down. Not much went right for her Doomben. She was only beaten less than 2 lengths in a Galaxy the run before that. Granted, most of the field were beaten less than 2 lengths, but she's pretty handy. She's got the ability to push forward and take advantage of that track pattern that we think will favour top 6 in running. She's got to go in my bet slip as well. And then also going to General Salute. Now, this horse is a really interesting runner. For mine, he's possibly the best horse in the race. He resumes here. He's placed 4 from 6, including 2 wins first up from a spell. First up last preparation, which was way back last winter. He ran second in that WJ Healy Stakes behind Metal Art, that good Queensland galloper. He's had a bit of time off, granted, and he's only had 1 trial. That's a knock, but he did win that trial. It was decent time. Jules, when I look at his form last preparation, Transatlantic, Headley Grange, Autumn Glow, and Lazura, they're superior horses to what he's facing on Saturday. Yep. For mine, this is a drop in grade for him, and he's got good, fresh form. The stable are very good at getting them ready first up, and I reckon they've come here. They're happy with the 1 trial. That's all he needs. He'll be ready to rock and roll. Then we go to race 9, and this is just a roughie that I'm happy to spec. Number 20, right down towards the bottom. Glad you think so. I was at Randwick the day that he was off, I think about an 8-week gap between runs. He was 3 wide and 4 wide, no cover throughout this 1,600-metre race. God's Window was the eventual winner that you can see, and ran reasonable time in winning as well. there's no issue with him getting back onto a dry track. He's adept in all conditions. Glad you think so. But I think with a more economical run where he can get to the front and control the tempo a bit more here, even if he's got to go quick in front, that's fine. So long as he's not covering ground, he's now had that run under the belt. I just think it was too much to ask for him last time out. The fact that his SP was the same as God's Window last time, and now it's almost 2.5 times the price of God's Window, I think tells me that he's over the odds, and I think he's a big improver at a good price.
Let's get to my set for Flemington. We're going to start in race 2, number 3 each way, a horse called a Samurai Mind. Actually, once in its life did carry the Foxcatcher Silks, RIP. I think this horse will roll forward, and I reckon it's going to give us a really big side. It's going much better than what the form guide says. Neindorf goes on. That bloke is just going to be one of the best jockeys in the land, I think, with time. He's just going so well at the moment. Yep, I'm backing him at a Samurai Mind. Race 5, number 4, First Chorus on the quick 7-day backup. We talked about it on Fox Factors. It was off 35 days last start. I don't know if it was all the way there. I think they rode it sort of conservatively through the line. Yeah, it was far too good for them. Now I reckon they bang on speed from that inside gate. It comes between it and Duchess Zoo. And I reckon First Chorus at the 600 is going to put it right to Duchess Zoo and say, hey, I'm going to make you crack. Whether it cracks first or Duchess Zoo does, which will that'll be one of them has to win the race. I'm going with First Chorus to sit outside it and beat it. Race 6, I'm playing with 2, LOU, a quick on the quick 7-day backup. Yes. Third up record. Yes. I think they roll forward here again. They were probably a little bit negative neutral from the gate last start. This week, I think they roll forward. Spione ran up at your joint last start, and they ended up going outside rail. They didn't need to do that, to be honest. It was well supported. Yeah. It's a wet tracker. I think it'll probably be, midfield, worse than midfield, but it's ready to rock and roll. That horse just had no luck last start. And in the last race, race 9, specking a horse number 16, Silver Magnate each way. I don't know if it's going to be ready first up. It's off 200-plus days, but it did win on debut off sort of 3 jump outs. It won, did a massive number. Then it had 300-plus days, again had 3 jump outs and won impressively at Sandown. Only had the 2 jump outs here, but up the straight, no weight, 54 kilos. Don't know if it gets through the wet. If it does, it will be winning this race, Silver Magnate. That is my set. That is your set. Nick Ashman, thank you very much. I'll see you Monday. Good luck at the doctors getting rid of malaria.
Thanks, mate.
You win some, you lose more. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.